On this episode of the Neutral Wisdom podcast, Satanist and Satanic Warlock Robert Shirley discusses the writing, publishing, and release of his book, Neutral Wisdom, Contemplations of a Satanic Warlock. You are listening to the Neutral Wisdom podcast, a podcast dedicated to passing on knowledge and experience from a satanic perspective, hosted by Satanist and Satanic Warlock Robert Shirley.
Greetings and welcome to the Neutral Wisdom Podcast. I'm your host, Satanist and Satanic Warlock Robert Shirley, and today I wanted to step away from my usual format and talk about the release of my book, Neutral Wisdom, Contemplations of a Satanic Warlock. The last couple of episodes I did were an hour plus, so a shorter episode will be a nice break. I've talked about this before on my various social media posts, but I really wanted to take this opportunity to open up about being a self-published author and the experiences I had, which got me to where I am today. I released the book officially February 18th, 2025, and thank you so much to all the people who have bought it and shared reviews. It's truly humbling to know there are folks out there who are willing to read my words and ideas. But I kind of wanted to take this journey back to the beginning just to share how I got to the point of having a finished book and being ready to release a second one, but that comes later in the show. So, since this is my platform, I thought I would address a couple of items here. Why do I do this? How did I get started with writing? Why did I decide to write a book? Why did it take so long to release it? Can you do this? And what's next? So why do I do this? Well, I guess it would be fair to say I'm just a guy. A regular old schmuck living life, doing my best not to step on people's toes if I can help it. But I am a regular guy who's also a Satanist, and I think that alone bears sharing. But let me be clear here. I'm not shilling Satanism. I'm not doing this to sell Satanism to the masses because really, do we need more Satanists? I'm not proselytizing or preaching because we don't do that. I simply figured that if I'm having issues with midlife, with who I am, with my personality, then others must be going through the same types of things. I mean, at my age, if not sooner, one day you wake up and say, well, there's the first half gone. What did I accomplish? And more importantly, what the hell am I going to do with the second half now? Satanism is the philosophy I use to determine my own answers to those questions. A religion based on plain old common sense? A religion where I don't have to go to church and kneel down? Where I don't have to beg for my soul from some dude in a dress every week? A religion where we not only accept that we're human, but we revel in it? Makes perfect sense to me. I'm not offering Satanism as a lifestyle because I don't see it that way, at least not for me. It's a guideline I use to better my own life. Man, I wish I had had a book like this when I was first trying to figure out this whole midlife thing. Hey, your situation's not the same as mine, but to find examples of the philosophy that can be applied in real time, that would be a jumping off point for anyone looking to make changes, I think. I write because it's cathartic for me. And if you think I dropped some personal bombshells in the first book, just wait. The second one cracks me open like a coconut. I share because I think there's wisdom to be gained from another person's experience. If that person happens to be me, well then, you're most welcome. So, how did I get started? Well, I kind of covered this in the very first episode of this podcast, but some of it bears repeating, I guess, especially if you're new. As I've said before, I was never really a writer, per se. Up until I started with the blogs, I was pretty much a business writer, formal communication, something I still do in my daily work. As an aside, these days when I do use this style of writing in correspondence with businesses, especially those businesses who piss me off, I've been accused of being rude. I guess being to the point and factual is considered rude these days. Anyway, my Warlock brother Jerry Dennis, who owns the Warlock Emporium, had set aside a blog space on that site, but there really wasn't a whole lot in it. I was just developing my ideas to write essays, and of course I saw this as an opportunity to have my writing posted somewhere. Jerry was gracious enough to agree, and so I began with my blogs. And they weren't very good, actually. I mean, the ideas were there, as well as the writing style I use, which I consider to be a conversational style. But since I was still working through and reconciling my feelings about a lot of things at this point, I use this platform as more of a ranting space. Sorry about that, Jerry. Eventually, I moved over to social media because Jerry wasn't posting the blogs as fast as I was writing them, which in hindsight was probably a good thing. Apparently, I can be a bit of a control freak or something. I mean, I don't personally believe that, but there are some who would say otherwise. I don't know. For the record, my adventures in social media suck too, but this is about the book, so no need to open that can of worms here. Why did I decide to write a book? Well, over time my writing did improve, and I started to amass a fair amount of material. I was a big fan of COS Magister Michael Rose's Infernalia, and go check that out if you haven't. I loved his essay format. Sure, it was a lot like a lot of the other essay books in our COS canon, but Magister Rose's book felt more personal to me. I loved the subject matter in each essay. I loved the fact that he said a lot of things that people are afraid to say. The essay on Jerry's kids is awesome. And so, like I think with everything else I end up doing, I thought, well, why don't I publish a book of essays? I mean, why not? I reached out to COS Magister Ruth Waits, who had been a guest on the Devil Salon podcast, and asked her if she'd review a couple of my essays on social media to see if I had what it takes to actually publish a book. After all, if you want to start producing, you need to ask questions. I mean, the worst thing she was going to tell me is that I wasn't ready, right? Magister Waits provided some great feedback on my writing style, but most importantly to me, she said that I was, and I quote, building a strong voice. You know what you're talking about, and each essay has something specific to say. That was the validation I needed to keep going. If a high-level member of our organization could see merit in what I was doing and provided feedback that it was being done in an acceptable style, I saw no reason to quit. I just wanted to get better. So I kept at it, kept writing, kept amassing material until I thought I had enough to put into a book. Why did it take so long to release? Well, dear listener, here we are, the meat of this podcast. I hope this is the neutral wisdom you take away from it, because I would never want anybody else to go through what I did. I love my warlock brother Jerry. I take a lot of inspiration from the things he does. Jerry had written his own book, Survival, How Becoming a Satanist Saved My Life, and recommended his quote-unquote publisher to me. I say that with quotes for obvious reasons we'll get to. So I contacted this publisher, let's call them Publisher X for easy reference, in March of 2024. So this whole thing actually started about a year before the book was released. I didn't want to say anything about the book release on my socials, since schedules and timelines can be messed up depending on factors in the publishing process. First lesson, kids. If a publisher wants money from you upfront to publish your book, run away as fast as you can. The Publisher X rep, let's call him Alfie, came at me hard and fast with a sales pitch, very high pressure. Since I knew basically nothing about book publishing, I thought this was completely normal. They wanted me to sign a contract for $5,000 US to publish and then market my book, which, like an idiot, I signed and paid in full upfront. Don't ever do that. I did get a proposed schedule from Alfie, which was pretty much a 6-month timeline. It included editing and revisions in the first 2 months, creating an author's website in the second 2 months, and then a full press release with videos and interviews and media by the end of the contract. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Yeah, well, sounding good's about the end of it. After I signed the agreement and sent Alfie my manuscript, all went radio silent for about 2 months. Which is funny because when he was trying to get me to sign the deal, he called me every day. Alfie wouldn't answer phone calls or emails, so my whole project was basically in limbo for the 2 months. I asked Jerry how he was making out, and he gave me a different contact at Publisher X to try who was just amazing. Sorry, Brother G, just relating the story here. So, it's always nice to find out that your project managers left the company for personal reasons and that nobody picked up his files. Or, let you know that he left after they have your payment in full, up front. And so I started working with a second rep. Let's call him Billy. Keep in mind that we're already 2 months behind here. Billy sent the manuscript to his team, and they started with the review and edits. This continued on for a period of about 2 months. During this time, the team edited the first 3 chapters of the book, and then kept sending me those same revisions with no changes for the whole period. I mean, is it really that hard to understand that Magister Dr. Robert Johnson did not write Neutral Wisdom, Contemplations of a Satanic Warlock? Apparently it is, because I had to change that myself, as well as doing the rest of the formatting and editing of the entire manuscript myself, which I had paid for, in full, upfront. During this period, I should note that I did receive a graphic and cover design per the contract, which I used to create my first merchandise for my brand, but more on that later. Billy also offered to publish my book to a well-known book publishing company, all for an extra $10,000. Never mind that the contract I signed said, and I quote, original price $5,000 only. There are no hidden or extra charges. After I argued at length with Billy about hidden charges and contracts, and eventually told him to stick it up his ass, my project was transferred to, let's call him Charlie. It was also during this time that Publisher X's marketing department got involved with me. Let's call this person Dee Dee for shits and giggles. Dee Dee just loved my book and thought it should be showcased at the Brooklyn Book Festival in 2024. And they would be happy to do this on my behalf, all for the low bargain price of, you guessed it, $10,000. When I refused this, again stating the no hidden charges clause in the contract, I was asked if I was too poor to afford it. I shit you not, that was the actual question. Real professional there, Publisher X. When I stuck to my guns and refused to participate in the book festival, which I later learned you can do yourself for pretty much free, I was told to be a loser and stay with the little people then. Regardless, it was time to have Publisher X create an author website for me, as stipulated in the contract, which at this point was seriously looking like it was going to be in default. So, did they create an author's website for me? Sorta. I think it's still live on the web if you care to go find it. Just don't say I didn't warn you. The author's website has an old cover design with what's called placeholder text. It says ipsum lorem and a bunch of other Latin, meant to fill space until a description can be written. Apparently, I'm also selling everything the Warlock Emporium sells at $40 for each item. What a deal. Which means they just went to Jerry's website and took a bunch of his stuff. Okay, fine. I figured they'd refine it per the contract. Now, and I didn't know this at the time, when you get a website, you also need hosting services. Okay, so how am I supposed to know that? I'm pretty much a Luddite when it comes to all things tech. The contract promised me an author's website. They delivered it, such as it was. But hosting? Never even mentioned. Oh, they were willing to provide hosting services for a 3-year period for a cost of, wait for it, $10,000. So when I refused that, they told me that hosting was included in my contract for a period of 1 year. Wait, what? Okay, so even talking about this right now raises my blood pressure. So if you want to see a truly shitty website that is incomplete, go find it. Now, I should note that I requested cancellation of this contract 3 times over the course of it. Not once was the request ever even acknowledged by Publisher X. And again, in the 4th month of the agreement, Publisher X disappeared completely. Every phone number I tried was disconnected. Every email to various members of Publisher X was returned as undeliverable. Even their website was taken down. I kept trying, but no dice. So, by this time, we were closing in on the completion of the 6-month time period. My deliverables, if you can call them that, were graphics for a book cover, a quote-unquote website, and a 3-chapter edited manuscript, which I had finished myself. I didn't see the contract being completed, so instead of requesting a cancellation a fourth time, I went to my credit card company and asked if I could get my money back due to default of the contract. Since I was within the 6-month time period, they said I could, so I filed a claim. I sent a very detailed accounting of my experiences to that point, pretty much what I've outlined here. It was at this point that the manager of Publisher X started to contact me, like daily. Let's call him Earl for shits and giggles, shall we? Earl was extremely apologetic about the whole situation. He offered to give me back my money in full if I canceled my claim with my credit card company. Now, I might have been born in the dark, but it sure as hell wasn't last night. Did you know that if you cancel a claim with your credit card company, you are not allowed to ever open another claim for the same thing? Well, Earl sure did. I told Earl that I didn't trust him or his company because I'd never been given a reason to. He responded and said if I signed a release agreement, he would refund me in full. I said, fine, once this is signed, we're done. I signed his agreement, in which I agreed not to use any of the deliverables I had received, which was fine with me, and sent it back, telling him I would cancel my claim once my refund was issued. Oh no, first you cancel your claim and then I'll issue the refund. Seriously, do you think for 1 minute that after all of the non-performance, the name-calling, the disappearances, that I would throw away my one and only chance to get my money back? Did you honestly think I was so stupid as to not realize the minute I canceled my claim that you wouldn't find some way to not refund me? Try again, fella. Of course, I said my claim would stand until he issued the refund. I told him he had no reason not to trust me. All I wanted was my money back so I could get on with the business of publishing my book. And then the name-calling started. Over a period of 2 weeks, I had my integrity insulted, my manhood called into question. I was called a liar, a thief, had my credit score threatened. I was threatened with legal action, you name it. And I should note here that I am far too smart to engage in a verbal war with someone. Doing what I do for a living, as long as I have, has taught me that this gets you nowhere. I did respond, mostly to tell him to leave me alone and that the credit card company would handle it. I guess this would be one of those situations where writing in a business tone gets you called rude, but I digress. At one point, he even offered to refund me less money if I canceled my claim. I still don't really see how that would have been a fair and equitable settlement, but hey, I'm not that guy, so. Eventually, he told me he would no longer contact me because I wasn't his client anymore, and believe me, I was completely devastated. But he had engaged his quote-unquote legal team, and I would be sorry. Now, if you follow me on social media, you would recognize this as the point where I said I was having problems with my publisher and had to delay the book release. Well, these were those problems. So, when you file a claim with a credit card company, the vendor has a certain amount of time in which to reply to the challenge. This time period elapsed with no response from my credit card company. When I contacted them to request an update, they informed me that Publisher X did indeed file a response. Their response? My name and the amount of the transaction. Kind of like I said, these guys owe me money for default of contract, and they replied, no, we don't. My credit card company literally laughed at this answer and told me to just wait it out. I suppose the Publisher X crack legal team was busy getting ready to ruin my life in other ways. I have no idea. And so ended my relationship with Publisher X. You might have noticed that I did change all of my logos, graphics, and fonts, and I did this for a couple reasons. See, the agreement I signed with them for a refund said I would return all the intellectual property, the stuff they gave me, when I got my money back from Publisher X. But technically, I never got my money back from them, so the deliverables I received are still legally mine. Even though I won, did I really though? I don't want to use their IP. Better to cut ties completely, I think. So I designed my own material, which in my opinion is way better than the crap they gave me. But that's just me. And how did Brother Jerry make out? Oh, he got screwed over by them too, but that's his story to tell. Anyway, I've since learned that one can self-publish for free. All I pay for the cost of publishing now is my cost to print the books I sell. I'm not going to give any company free advertising, but you can contact me and I'll tell you exactly what I did. It might help you never know. Can you do this? Absolutely you can. It's said that everyone has at least one good book in them. Do you post your thoughts on social media? Do you reply in online forums? Do you have stories in your head that you want to get out? Put your pen on paper or your fingers on your keyboard and get started. Let it out in whatever form it takes. You can always hire an editor to fix your writing or reshape it into proper format for book publication. It never hurts to do what I did and ask a trusted person for honest feedback on your work. At the very least, it might tell you where you need to improve before taking the big step of publishing. A word, though, from me to you. Be aware of your subject matter. I know that publishing a book with the dreaded S word in the title is going to be a huge deterrent for the general population. Stephen King numbers I ain't gonna see. In fact, I've already been rejected by some marketers because they're Christian, which to me is really stupid since I'm paying you to do a job and your personal views shouldn't come into it. Is it just me who thinks that? But like with anything else in my life, I'm just a guy, and if I can do this, anybody can. Seriously. So get to work. So what's next for Neutral Wisdom and Devilish Gentleman Enterprises? Well, I can't give that all away, but I can tell you that I have completed a second book and I'm working on a third. I have no idea when I'll release the second book, but I promise that when I do, it'll be on my timeline and my schedule. It all really depends on how the first book sells and if I see a demand for another. So get out there and get your own copy, would you? Help a brother out. I used to post blogs and some of my content on social media, but have stopped doing that since I see a lot of people doing it now, which is awesome. Just curious, should I keep posting blogs maybe on my website at neutralwisdom.ca? Let me know if you want to see some free or bonus content. Other than that, I'm going to keep podcasting as long as I can keep coming up with ideas. That said, I'm also open to your ideas too. If you have a topic you'd like to see addressed by Neutral Wisdom, by all means, let me know. All right, well, I know this has been a long haul listening to only me for the whole episode. I couldn't really have a guest on to discuss this material since I'm the one who experienced it. But I figured that I should share the reasons it took so long to release my book, especially if you're thinking you might like to do the same thing in the future. For what it's worth, if you write a book, I will totally buy it and leave a review. So come on, folks, part me from my money. And as a last request, if you have read Neutral Wisdom, Contemplations of a Satanic Warlock, please go online and leave a review. It really helps get the word out there and will let me know if I should release the second book anytime soon. And I think with that, that'll about wrap it up for this episode of the Neutral Wisdom Podcast. Thanks to everyone for listening. Please drop a like or a comment down below. For questions or comments, you can email me directly at information@neutralwisdom.ca. You can listen to us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and all the usual places. A like and a subscribe go a long way in getting this podcast out there. Check me out on Facebook under Robert Shirley, and check out Instagram at neutral_wisdom. Be sure to visit the website at neutralwisdom.ca. And don't forget to check out my book, Neutral Wisdom, Contemplations of a Satanic Warlock, now available on Amazon in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle formats. Until next time, ever forward.